Okay, I am really tired and it is almost 3 a.m. Flight is at 6:40 to get back to the US, but I do want to make this video because today I think I finally made progress against procrastination. So backtrack to yesterday. I had the whole story about everything that was going on. How I felt like I was making progress in certain directions, but not in the direction that is actually needed, pivotal, fundamental. Those directions were good, but it's just adding more to my life versus one that actually could like firms the foundation and everything. And so I told myself two things, two questions I would ask myself. One, if I spoke to God first thing in the morning after I woke up. And two, if I responded to messages the first moment I had the opportunity to respond. I did both of them and I actually completed them, and I can say confidently and firmly that I did those things. And so I don't have to come here and say, oh no, I wasn't able to achieve them and everything. And what was interesting is, okay, so I did them and I wanted to really acknowledge how I was feeling when I did them and the circumstance and what really encouraged me to do them. It's one thing I, and I think there's an interesting mix of them that really came together to just make something that worked really well. So number one, there was accountability. I knew that I was going to have to bear witness about my choices, my actions at the end of the day. I would have to talk here and like talk about what I did, why I did what I did, and whether I wanted to or not, and etc. And so that gave us a bit more. There was a bit more urgency for it because all of a sudden I knew that I knew that either I did it or I have to come here and say, hey, I didn't do it for whatever reason and whatnot. And so knowing that you have to actually bear witness about something you're going to do actually just motivate you to do it. And I think that's also why when other people are involved, then we tend to do things versus like when it's just on our own, because then there's no one to like bear witness to in a sense. And I didn't want to break the promise to myself because I know I can do this and I want to really get there. Number two, the goals, the those questions were binary and they were specific. They were time specific. I reflected a little bit today. I wrote a bit in my journal, and I've realized two things about procrastination. Procrastination is caused by something, and it is enabled by something. So the cause is usually like whatever it is that might cause you. Like the cause is usually fear, some notion of like this is too much, or I need to push it back, or I don't have the energy, the strength, I don't have what it takes, etc. That's usually the cause. The enabler is the fact that the perception that you have time for procrastination. And so if you are able to actually, um if you have, what's it called, if you have let's say you have like 5 hours and you say you want to do this thing now. If you don't do it now, then technically you can push it back for the rest of the 5 hours. It's just that it would start stressing you and everything. Procrastination is when you convince yourself that you actually have the opportunity to push it back. It's when you become afraid of the thing, so you don't do it immediately, and then you convince yourself that you can push it back, and so you just go ahead with it later. Either afraid of it or you just tired of it, bored of it, whatever it is, but you push it back either way. And what I realize is by making this goal here, the critical thing about this goal is that initially, if you watch my previous video as well, initially I made it slightly differently. I said, oh, I want to talk to God today. But then I realized that's not specific enough. That's not time specific enough. I mean, SMART goals, like all that whole thing, because it gives me a good thing to do, but it doesn't give me a time to actually do it. And so all of a sudden I have two choices. I have do it or do it later. And I can do it until the end of the day. And I have basically infinite time to do it until all of a sudden there's no time to do it. And then I say, oh, I didn't do it. Or you make it time specific. There's a small section that you're able to do, a small interval that you can do it. And if you don't do it within that small interval, you have failed it. You have been unsuccessful at it. There is no I can do it later. You actually did fail that task because that task needed to be done at this point. It's like um it's like there's limited time offer on something. And but in this case it's not limited time offer as in if you don't get it now then it'll just be more expensive later. It's like if you don't get it now, it's disappearing, it's gone. And that's similar to what this goal became. I knew that if I didn't do it now, that I would have to say I didn't do it. I would have to say that I didn't actually commit to it. And because if I pushed it back, then it would no longer be the first thing that I did. And so inherently, like, it's something that I had to account for. And I can't remember if this is number two or number three, but another thing as well is that these are relative. I um the goals were relative to different events rather than absolute. So it wasn't that at 9 a.m. I would do this, because I don't know if I'd wake up at 9 a.m. or 7 a.m. or whatever. It was immediately after I wake up, relative, implying that this is a sequential thing after something that I already do. So what they call it, like habit cascading, habit, whatever the thing is, habit chaining. Like, I think they call it that anyway. But combining those three or four, I lost count. Combining those things together anyway allowed me to have a task that actually had enough urgency for me, because it was no longer a question of do it or do it later. It was a question of do it or don't do it. Because if I chose not to do it now, then it means that I failed the task. And so it's either I choose to succeed at the task or fail the task. And in some cases, we might choose to fail the task or be unsuccessful. It just means to pick yourself up, acknowledge why you didn't want it, acknowledge, question whether the goal was actually aligned with where you want to go and what you're actually trying to achieve. This is a lot of things you could think about. But I think here, in this case, that decision to make those two goals such simple goals but effective, so effective, because I acknowledge that if I didn't do it in this exact way, then I would have to. And mind you, I did still wake up, and immediately as I woke up, like, I was speaking to my friends. As you can probably tell, the backdrop is back to how I was in Norway. I'm back in Norway, but I was speaking to my friends and everything, and then I went to go and shower. So it wasn't like the first thing I did, but the second I had the opportunity and I realized this, I had to sit down and actually do it, because if I didn't, then I'm consciously making a choice to not do it, and that is the choice to not get to the goal. And so the goal would be a failure inherently, right? Or unsuccessful, as I usually prefer to put it. And so by making a goal that actually was time specific, was not overbearing. It wasn't a huge thing that had to be accomplished, but just a simple thing. It was time specific, where and relative to something else. All of a sudden, the goal became a lot more achievable, a lot more directed. And I think that was something that really just changed the way I looked at things. Procrastination, like, it's not, the question isn't do it now or do it later. The question is do it or don't do it. And the tip of the iceberg, or the secret sauce of the cherry on top, was the fact that I knew that at the end of the day, I would have to account for my sins, or bear witness of my actions, whatever you want to put it. I'd have to come back to this camera and say what I did, what I had opportunity for, and what I chose to do it with. And that created urgency. That created a need to, like, actually do something about it. Because otherwise I could say I'm going to do this and then get away with it because there's nothing holding me accountable to it. Now myself is holding me accountable, because I know that I said these things, and I know I recorded these things, and I know I would have to come back at the end of the day to do exactly this thing. And I could drop it all right now. But if I do, where would I be going? And would I be faithful to myself? Would I be giving myself a chance? Would I even be trying? I don't want to be the person to say that I didn't try. And so we'll see. Now the next thing is just consistency, to keep it up. Today is actually the big day. It's like 3 or 4 a.m. But today is the big day. 104 days is coming out. We'll see if the video does well. If it does, this will be very interesting. If it doesn't, like, we'll still do it, because I mean, it's for ourselves, right? It's for myself, right? Once again, this journal is I guess I didn't introduce the journal this time around, but this journal is for me to hold myself accountable, and for you to share my own story, and just show people that these things are possible beyond just someone talking to the camera already having figured it out. What you get to watch the experience of someone figuring it out on the fly. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you very much. Next time I have this, you'll probably see me back in the US, or by God's grace. All right. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.